Welcome to Game and Going Deeper, a podcast series by the Gaymen's Brotherhood where we talk about personal development, mental health, and sexuality. We are your hosts. Michael Diorio is a life and wellness coach specializing in sexuality, relationships, and self-confidence. Reno Johnston is a spiritual life, love, and business coach. And I am Matt Lansadell, an intuitive life and spiritual coach and counselor specializing in healing and empowerment. We each have our own coaching practice, but in this podcast, we're sharing all of our best stuff. So today we're talking about family matters. And we're going to be unpacking questions like, what do you find challenging about family? How has your family shaped who you are? And what matters most to you when it comes to your family? We'll continue these discussions on the last Thursday of every month in the Gaymen's Brotherhood Zoom Hangout, where you'll have a chance to share your own experience. This podcast and YouTube channel are listener and viewer supported. If you enjoy what we're creating, you can support us by making a donation to the show using the link in the show notes. You can also subscribe to early access, the early access option on Apple Podcasts, listen ad-free, and gain early access to episodes. All of your support helps us continue making content for you and supporting our community, and we do thank you in advance for that. If you're looking to accelerate your personal development journey, check out our coaching collection. You can learn how to heal and empower yourself at your own pace by getting instant access to 45 premium personal development coaching videos created by us, as well as our Healing Your Shame and Building Better Relationships courses. So you can head over to gameandgoingdeeper.com for more information on that. All right, so family matters. This actually reminded me of Steve Urkel, the topic. Yeah. So for those of our young audience might not know
did I do that?
Yeah, So the theme of the month in the Brotherhood is family dynamics. And when we originally were thinking about a topic, it was like, oh, we could talk about wounding, family wounding, and these sorts of things. And I was feeling a little bit toasted on talking about, trauma and heavy family stuff and all these things. So I wanted to create a little bit more balance. And I know on the healing journey, that can really happen to a lot of us. We get burnt out from healing and we create an identity around healing. And then we have to actually move away from that when we start to move towards empowerment. And that's where I feel like I'm at right now. So I wanted to change the title to Family Matters. And it has a double meaning. So family matters, meaning like matters that we deal with in our family. So it could be issues within our family. Yes, we want to talk about that today. But I'm also in a really interesting spot of like really looking at, how much my family matters to me and how I've been shaped both positively and negatively by my family. So I'm trying to create balance there. So I figured I wanted to bleed this into the conversation today. And I wanted to normalize, family, even just the word family can bring up a lot of emotion for people. It can be very mixed, right? We can, in the same experience, say, I love my family. And we can also in the same breath say, my family frustrates the shit out of me, right? And I think we want to honor both of those parts in us. And I think that's what I want the intention of this episode is to be like, can we hold space for both of those experiences of family and share them? So I want to also, just kind of bring voice to this whole notion of family, speaking from both sides. Like we have intergenerational trauma that can be passed down, right? And these sorts of things impact the way that we experience family when we're younger. And it can be, it can set us up for struggle in life. But also things that are passed down intergenerationally are things like resilience, right? So there's aspects of every character in our family is going to have strength and weakness, right? And we're going to be influenced by both of those things. And I think I want to, really the listener, viewer, and you two to just think about that while we're sharing today is like, what are the resiliency factors within my family? What have we survived together that allowed us to really, grow together? Because I think that's a big aspect of this. While also honoring that there may be intergenerational trauma within your family, and we want to honor that as well too. So with that being said, our family really is the formation of who we are, right? It's the it's the record button in our family. We hit record for the first 10 years, and then we're playing that back for the rest of our lives, really. So we have shadow, we have light, we have both sides that are present. So that's why I carefully crafted these questions today to kind of allow us to be able to focus on both of these aspects. So yeah, let's start with Michael. What do you find challenging about family?
Yeah, I love this topic. Thanks for that intro, Matt. As always, you've given me now more to think about based on what I was going to share. But this comes at a really good time because we just here in Canada had Thanksgiving at the time of recording. So, I mean, I'm coming off the heels of that. And right now, if you can, those of us watching on YouTube, I'm at my family cottage and my family is actually scattered all around. So this is perfect. Before I answer the question of what I find most challenging, because I know some of them listen to this podcast and they surely will listen to this one because of the title, I want to start by saying what I love about my family very quickly first, before I jump into the challenges, and there are them. So I'm very grateful. One of the things I'm often very deeply grateful for is my family. It's often at the top of my list, up there with health. I know, like Matt, you were saying that first 10 years that record button, I'm very fortunate to have had. I mean, yes, there was negative aspects as well, but I'm very fortunate to have had the people around me that I did. Some of my happiest memories are with my family, especially in childhood, even today as an adult. Here at the cottage, I have so many great memories here. Family dinners. For those of you who don't know, I come from an Italian background, so very traditional Italian background. So there's lots of love in the room, lots of affection. I was surrounded by that as a kid. I'm also very fortunate to have, when I came out, they have all accepted me, which again, I know that I'm very fortunate in that because that's certainly not the case for a lot of people. They love me and that bond is tight. So I have really come to love and appreciate my family, even though they do drive me crazy. We'll talk about that. And even though we don't see eye to eye. But I think that at the end of the day, there's definitely more good that has come from it for me than negative. So on that, let's talk about the challenges. So, like anyone, I didn't choose these people, not consciously anyway, on a soul level maybe, but I didn't choose these people. Like I don't know if I would have if I did have a choice, right? That's the whole thing about chosen family is there people that we consciously choose, and it's easier, I think, sometimes to love our chosen family and harder to love the ones that we're stuck with. So we don't get along all the time, obviously. I'm very different than the rest of my immediate family. Not only am I gay, there's no other gays in the family, at least that are out that I know of. But I'm the only one who's gay. I live in a big city. They don't. I'm non-traditional in many, many ways. My outlook on life and politics and mindset, they're more traditional. So it's hard to get along sometimes. It's an extra step. Like I have to work harder sometimes to truly connect with them. And I got to get creative. I got to get creative in how I'm connecting. So there will be times where I completely disagree with someone on something they're saying. This happened at Thanksgiving, and I was like, but then like a minute later, I was looking at them thinking, wow, you have so much love in your heart, and like I just love you. Like all within the same, like within a minute of each other, right? And so that's the thing. Like I think that that's the challenge is it's harder to love them sometimes, but because they're not going anywhere, I just got to make it work. And they don't always get it, right? So again, being the only gay in the family, like I find myself having to not defend myself, but justify my life, my actions, my choices a lot of the time. And being shamelessly gay, as I like to be, unapologetically gay, there's a lot of people who just like they shake their head whether they see on Instagram or my TikTok, or they're like, "Why are you doing that? Why are you showing up like that? Oh my gosh, why do you have to be like that?" And it's a lot of me having to like justify it, and I will, and I do, but they don't get it, right? So I think that's the most challenging part for me. As much as I love them, I do have to find a way to meet them halfway. And I will say this, I'll end with this, because they're not going anywhere, because I am stuck with them, I kind of like that I'm forced to figure it out, because it's a lot easier to just say, peace out, I'm out of here, bye. But because we are a tight-knit family, I can't just squeeze out of it. So it has taught me a lot of things like empathy, meeting people halfway. Yeah, that's probably the most challenging bit for me.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah. How about you, Reno?
Yeah. That breath was filled with love and also experience. You know, my family, we're a really beautiful and dynamic bunch. And I'll share as well that it doubled in size 2.5 years ago when I met my biological father for the first time. Technically, it was the second because apparently we met when I was 3 here in Vancouver, and there's a whole story there. It's a wild story. But I won't get into it too much just now. But my family doubled in size recently, so now I have all of these siblings. 1, 2, 5 more, I think it is. And aunts and uncles and nieces and nephews and cousins, and it's pretty phenomenal. But growing up, there was this kind of dichotomy in the household and within my family. There was so much love and so much warmth and so much acceptance and welcoming and beauty and creativity and brilliance. And then on the other side, there was a lot of trauma. There was a lot of instability. There was a lot of adversity, historically and also as I was growing up. And so that was very much visible and felt in my home. There were moments where we would we would have these beautiful like family dinners and family gatherings, and grandma would make her desserts, and we'd be in the kitchen, and it was a whole thing, and you could feel the joy and the warmth and the celebration in the house. And then there were other moments where people were fighting. My grandma and grandpa could not even be in the same room until the final year of his life, actually, which is wild. He got really sick, and she took him in, and we took care of him right up until he passed. And it's so wild that it took him dying for them to squash their shit. But sometimes I guess fatality, mortality is did I get that right?
Yeah.
Is a reminder of like what's important, what's important and what really matters, right? So I would say one of the more challenging things about my family is that we're all really strong people. We're all really strong, really wise, really seasoned and experienced people. We each got a piece of my mom. And and she's a force to be reckoned with, and so are we. And so that can be really beautiful when we come together in support of a common goal. And it can be really volatile when when we're butting heads because we don't agree on something, and we will stand grounded and rooted in what we believe in, right? The beautiful thing is when that's shared. I can remember, and then I'll more or less wrap up here, but I can remember when we were kids, we would scrap like each other, right? But if anybody else put their hands on any one of us, it was like we would just come together and we would come for you, and we would let you know, like, you don't put your hands on my brother or my sister, only we do. We fight each other, but if you touch any one of us, we gonna get you, so that was to me really special. And I know that if any one of us we're in trouble. And I've seen it. We've had so many, even in just the last couple of years, it's been wild, the stuff that has happened in my family. It should be a reality show, to be honest. But anytime there's a crisis in my family, like, we're all there and we're on it, you know, doesn't matter what's happening, what's going on between us, we're on it. And so I really, really love that. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, thanks for sharing, guys.
Uh-huh.
You know, I find it interesting that, you know, well, to answer the question, what do I find challenging about family? Not necessarily my family, but family in general, is that because it is the record button being hit, we take on all of these qualities of our parents, right? So from a very young age, we're looking up at dad being like, yeah, okay, cool, I'm going to take on all these things. So we take on the good, the bad, the ugly. So it's that mirror effect, right? And then we develop ourselves, our sense of self, based off of the extension of what our parents are showing us through mimicry. And then we get to this point in life, and I remember this exact time for me, when, like around 20, when I started to see my parents are fallible and they're human and that they suck at certain things. And you know, then I started this whole journey, which I'm still on, around forgiveness of all those things. But then there's a really humbling point on the journey where you realize that shit, the things I hate in them are the things that I hate in myself, because I absorb those exact qualities. And I find that the work for me has been very triggering, because that mirror is showing me. That's what shadow work showed me, is it's like the very things that I dislike about my mom or my dad are the very things that I dislike in myself. So the work is to accept those things in myself so I can accept those things in my parents. And so forgiveness and acceptance, I would say, are the most challenging things about family, because they're constantly mirroring things to us. So I get anxiety when I go to family functions, because of that, because I'm like, oh, like, what am I gonna feel today, or what part of myself am I gonna be faced to sit with? And within my family system, both sides, actually, maternal and paternal, there's high anxiety, and I'm a pretty highly anxious person as well, but I have been working tremendously hard on that. So when I'm around anxiety, what's actually activating for me is all of the coping mechanisms that my family uses to mask their anxiety. You know, perfectionism, dissociation, all these things are the things that I do, and those for me have led to disconnection, right? So when, for example, my father dissociates or avoids, it led to me feeling abandoned. So I would be so hard on my dad for being avoidant and having more of an avoidant attachment. But the funny thing is I do the exact same thing. And this has been the biggest realization for me. You know, I'm highly sensitive. I have sensory processing sensitivity, and I get it from my father. It's a genetic quality, right? Or genetic trait, and he has it. And so I've adopted the very things that he does to cope with his sensory processing sensitivity. I do the same things. So yeah, it's really allowed me to have compassion and empathy, but all the things that had to come up for me around this, and I'm actually still working on a lot of this stuff with my mother, because I think some of those things with my mother, it's more relational. So the patterning that I absorb from her is my mother is a push-pull. She has a disorganized attachment, which is where I could develop my disorganized attachment. So seeing her push away and then pull in and push and pull, it's like so activating for me, because I'm like, you know, so, but the beauty of this is, if you want to know what needs to be healed, just hang out with your family for an hour. They're a beautiful mirror. So when you get to the point in your journey where you're conscious enough, it's like you can use that as fuel for your own healing journey. And if you're not quite there yet, some of our listeners might not feel like they're there yet. I would just sit down and I would write down, what do I dislike about my mom? What do I dislike about my dad? And not all of them will be traits in you, right? Because we can still dislike qualities in other people that they're not inside of us. But usually, if they're really highly activated things that we don't like in that person, it's going to be things that, okay, maybe these qualities exist within me. So yeah, I would say the biggest thing is the mirror effect. It's just, I find it super challenging. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. So how has your family shaped who you are, Michael?
Okay. So, and you guys got me thinking. I thought of this and my mind went purely to like the positive things, but I'm gonna, just for the fun of it, I'm gonna add some of the maybe more
Mhm.
negative things. So the first thing that came to mind for me was the sense of loyalty and commitment, not
Mm.
just in relationships, but just in life. Like we are a very determined bunch. I was taught never to run away from your problems, to roll up your sleeves and work on it, whether it's a relationship or a work challenge or in school. I remember, it was like, okay, we're not going to complain about it. We're just going to sit down and get it done, figure out what to do. So I come from that kind of stock, going headfirst into challenge. I see that in me now, especially as an entrepreneur. I definitely get that from none of my family comes from an entrepreneurial background, but that work comes from them. Work ethic, which kind of goes into the second one, which is discipline. I hated that my parents would make me do stuff as a kid. And they instilled in me the sense of, no, you've made a commitment. You have to keep it. Here's the discipline. You show up if you don't want to do it. You go to school when you're sick, like that kind of vibe. If you guys can remember going to school, being sick and actually being sick and being like tough shit, you're going. That was my family. So that comes from them. And I think it comes from my grandparents all the way down, because my grandparents are the ones who immigrated here from Italy to Canada. And they were farmers in Italy. They were poor. So they built a life here in Canada from scratch. They worked hard to acclimate to Canadian culture. They had multiple jobs to eventually buy a house, put their kids through school. And so we come from a family of very hard workers. That work ethic was certainly passed down through the generations. And they never had an education. I was close with my grandparents. They got to maybe like grade 3 before they had to go work on the farm. And they were more valuable on their parents' farm than in a school. So they didn't have that much education. Meanwhile, my parents did, I certainly did, and generations that followed them, we've all gotten a chance to have a higher education if we want it. And we've all had the chance to experience things that they never could, like travel and just the nice luxuries of life that they never had. But they did all that hard work for us very consciously. And so I'm very, very much aware. I'm getting emotional here. Very, very much aware that all the privilege I have today, and I will admit I have a lot of privilege, I will acknowledge it, but it is built on the shoulders of their sacrifice, no doubt in my mind. And so for that, I'm very, very grateful. And I think that has passed down to me. The work ethic piece has passed down to me, but it's also like a sense of I work hard to honor them in a way. My grandparents have all passed away, but like I know that they're here, and I know that they're kind of pushing me when I want to quit and give up. I can just hear them say, "No, that's not what we do. That's not what we do, Michael." And then the last thing is, this is specific to my parents, both my parents, my biological parents. It's in my DNA. It's even within my siblings. Is my parents are probably the most warm, welcoming, affectionate people that I know, more so than me. I'm probably like the unfriendly one compared to my mom and my dad, and my sister and brother as well. They're both very, very friendly. They're genuinely like nice people. Like they will open their homes, open their hearts, piles of food on the table. Come on in. What do you need? Sit down, have a drink, big hugs, kisses, all the things. They're very generous and gregarious. I see that. I mean, I'm not quite at that level, I don't think, but I am. I'm a hugger. You guys know I love hugs and kisses, and I'm very affectionate. I'm also love opening my home. I love having people over. I love to entertain. So I definitely get that from them. I love community. I love all that stuff. And it's very natural to me. I just love it. And I think I get that from them. I will say as well, I've had several boyfriends in my life, and I've brought all of them home to meet my mom and dad, step parents and siblings, and they've all been welcomed with open arms, as if they're part of the family. Every single one of them that I've brought, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I know it's not easy for them. At least it wasn't in the beginning, but I will say they've made it look effortless. And I've always been super scared, like, oh, how's dad going to handle this? How's mom going to handle this? Big hugs. Oh, come here, big hug and have a drink. Let's sit down. Let's talk. And they've been very warm and welcoming. So on the more maybe negative side, I will say, again, both my parents and my siblings are incredibly, and me, are incredibly stubborn. I get that feedback a lot. I like to call it determined. Stubborn is also a word, but I like things my way. I don't like to budge. It's hard for me to budge. And I also have very high expectations that I think also comes from my parents. They have high expectations. I have high expectations. So that's not always great. I think it would have been nice to have a little bit more wiggle room and a bit more compassion. But the high expectations have helped in some ways as well. So I think those are the ways that my family has most shaped me and influenced me. My friends will say, who know my mom and dad, like, you are like the perfect combination of both your parents in a good way. And actually, Matt, I remember when we went for a walk in Calgary, we had this conversation. One of the questions we had asked was, in which ways are you most like your parents and not, right? So it's kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, it does. That was a great walk and conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks. That was really beautiful. Yeah, I felt it was a very heart-centered share. I felt everything that you said, and it gave me a ton of things. I added like 5 things to my list. I was like, okay. That's why I love these, because sometimes I struggle doing this on my own. And especially with this topic, I find it's really nice to have you guys go first and allow me to feel into that. So thank you.
Do your parents, both Matt and Rena, listen to this podcast?
My mom does, but my dad doesn't, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Rena?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna ask my mom.
They're probably gonna listen to this one.
Yeah, well, she might be listening on the down low. I'm not sure, but it's possible she does, and I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Yeah, I'm also really curious about who else I know listens to this that I'm like unaware of, Yeah.
I let go of that a long time ago, because I'm like, honestly, like, I share very vulnerably on here, and I'm like, if I started like nitpicking at who's listening to what, I'm just like, this is me, here I am.
Totally.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to say 2 things to kind of open my response to this question. One is, what we appreciate appreciates, and 2 is, what we focus on expands. And I share that because something that I've seen in my life is that when I went through this period where I started to look at the ways that my family had shaped me, negatively, we'll say, for lack of a better word, it was very confronting. And what I noticed was there was this tendency to focus on the adversity and to not focus on the really beautiful and positive and generative aspects of how my family shaped me. And so my invitation to anyone listening right now would be to, yes, look at the ways in which your upbringing and your relationship to your family is challenging, and to also simultaneously reflect on the experience that you want to be having in relationship to your family, and then begin to look at what you can focus on to begin to create that experience, because I could very easily focus solely on the ways in which, like, let's say my parents fucked me up, or like my brother and I got into it constantly, right? But the reality is that there's another side to that, which is that my brother taught me unconditional love. He was one of the most challenging people to deal with in my life. And it took years and years, decades, right, for me to finally come to a place where when we interacted, I just came with my whole heart and unconditional love. I love you still. He was my teacher. I think it was Matt who said at one point, I think you were the first person I heard this from, our triggers are our teachers. And my brother was a trigger, and in that he was also my teacher. So I am grateful to him for shaping me into a more loving, compassionate, accepting person, particularly in the face of individuals who I experienced to be more and most challenging, you know. I hated chores. And my mom used to say to me, how come whenever I ask you to do something, it's always a fight, but you end up doing it in the end anyway, and you end up doing it better than anybody else does it? And for me, that was just like, it was about power and choice, you know. I was like, I want to be in control, you know. I want to decide that I want to do it, and I'm going to let you know that I'm doing it because I want to do it, not because you told me I have to do it. I'm so grateful for chores though, because I value my space now, you know. I clean up after, and it's so frustrating to me when I'm in a space and people ain't doing chores. I'm like, who raised you? You know, like, are you kidding me? We were broke and we lived in low income housing, and there was a chore chart on the fridge, and every day when you came home after school, you cleaned something, and on the weekends you cleaned the whole room, you know. So that was just how it went. And I'm so grateful for that, because no matter how little or how much I have, I'm taking care of it, you know. We were super welcoming. We were super welcoming, and I've taken that with me. Nobody was not welcomed in our home. If you were hungry, there was a seat at the table for you. If you needed a place to sleep, we had a bed. If there wasn't an extra bed, we made an extra bed. If there wasn't an extra plate, we made one, you know. And it didn't matter. We could have been like stretching $1 and stretching, you know, a meal, but we still made some for you, you know. There was still some there for you. And I took that with me as well. We were always like, even when we were broke as well, right? Like, we always looked good. My mom made sure we always looked good. She made sure she always looked good. You know, my dad did the same, and they made sure we always looked good, you know. And we did not, they made sure that we were able to have experiences that would enrich our lives and that we would remember and that would be meaningful. And sometimes that meant that they had to hustle and beg and borrow and steal, so to speak, in order to make those experiences happen. But we'll remember those forever. You know, I saw a commercial for Marineland, and I used to cry when I saw it. And my mom picked up on this one time, and she made a mental note in her mind that one day she was going to take us. Now, this is a woman in her 20s, right? Raising 4 children, right? And somehow, you know, she hustled. She made that trip happen. We drove all the way across from Manitoba to Toronto, and she took us to Marineland, and that, I'll never forget that experience, you know. And I can only imagine what she had to do to make that possible, right? So I definitely learned how to stretch $1 and how to be creative and resourceful and resilient as well. You know, there's so many things: strength, care, hospitality, a whole list of things that really, really shaped me. And I think at the core of it all, there's like this like, I want to use the word wisdom, but even more than that, it's like heart or soul. Like, that is the gift that my family has given me. You know, I've got so much heart and so much soul. And I owe that to them, you know. I owe that to them. Yeah. Thank you. I'm surprised I said all that. Wow. I've not talked about my family like this before. This is wild.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
That was
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I want to just say that this conversation is so heart opening for me. Like I'm having like such an interesting experience right now. It's like my brain is like going into like wanting to find, and this is what I've done a lot of my life, find the things that are wrong, but my heart is wanting to open towards the things that I have gratitude for. So honestly, the mirror of you guys today is so it feels so healing. So thank you. Okay, yeah, where to go? So I think I came into this life, I think my soul chose the wounded healer path. And maybe that's some of it is past life wounding, but I think it was like, okay, we're going to go into this life and we're going to give you all the tools that you need, but there's going to be a lot of wounding. And then your path is to help people heal their wounds. And so I think that my family has shaped who I am by being kind of almost like the characters that I needed in my soul life to struggle with and to learn and really master my life purpose. Because I went into my very first actual career was in counseling, right? And supporting and healing and these sorts of things. So it's almost like I needed to go through and develop the scar tissue to be able to do my work from a heart-centered place. And I think that's where I'm at now. I'm really, a lot of my own personal healing is what I teach from. And it makes me relatable. It makes my work potent. There's an energetic transmission that I can offer people. And that is through my pain, right? And through the things that I've endured in my life. So that's one of the ways. I'd say on a deep soul level, that's probably the biggest one. And it's taken me a long time to get to a place where I can even experience gratitude for that. But I'm starting to taste like gratitude for those experiences. One of the things too that I would say is like from a young age, I think I've shared this before, but my father left the household when I was 9. My mother basically put that protector energy onto me from a young age. And yes, it was traumatic to have that put on me, on my shoulders, but it also shaped who I am. Like I'm very protective of the people in my life. I'm very nurturing. Growing up with 2 sisters with, at a certain point I had more contact with my father, but there was a period of time when I didn't have a lot of contact with him. So I was very much exposed to women. And I was able to connect with that more like empathic, nurturing side of myself. And then because I had a mother that I felt was, struggling, I became very highly attuned to other people's needs, which is, I'm learning is like such a great gift to have. So I can literally walk into a room and I can like feel people. I'm like, okay, this, and I can help people become comfortable, and I can help people heal because I can help them find out exactly what their needs are. And I've learned actually in the last while to turn that around on myself. And I'm really getting good at understanding my needs and what, and so, yeah, that's been really cool. So those are the things I had on there already. And then these are some of the things that you guys helped me really realize is, so my dad, I remember him being like, just like a total clown, like in the early years of my life. Like he would like walk around in his underwear and like, he was just a total goofball, and like, he was always making us laugh. And I think I've got that like in me as well. And I think that's one of the things that I think I really love about my dad is that he can be like a total goofball and playful. And then with my mother, she has a very she has a very sick and dark sense of humor, and that gave me permission to form mine too, because I have a very dark sense of humor. I work with darkness, a lot of darkness, so like my sense of humor can be really, really raunchy and dark, and not many people can handle that. Some people get offended by my sense of humor, but I really appreciate that about my mom. And then for my sister, if I honestly don't know how I would have survived my childhood without her. Like she was such a rock for me. And yeah, I don't know. There was a period in my life where I really struggled being around people on my own, and I just didn't feel safe. Like forming friendships with people and whatever. And she like let me hang out with her and her friends because it just felt safe. It's like I always wanted to be with my sister because I felt like she was like one of the only safe people in my life at the time. So if I'm just really, I find there's a lot of gratitude for her. And she's, when I think about like my sister, like whenever I think about her, my heart expands. She's one of the few people in my life that I can think about, and it's just my heart immediately opens. And I actually used her in a couple of my therapeutic sessions with, when I was learning how to open my heart and feel safe again. It was like she was my focal point. Her and my cat were the two, that I really used to kind of open up. So very grateful for her. My paternal side of the family, very perfectionistic. And I'm learning that that's actually not necessarily a bad thing, that, I've learned how to curate. My backdrop is always on point, these sorts of things, because I have that in me. My house is very tidy. I'm a hard worker. So there's this thing, this part of me that I'm learning to appreciate, right? I think it got me into trouble, and it pulled me in towards my inauthentic self. But now that a lot of that stuff is healing, I'm able to recognize that there is a part of me that wants things to be just so, and that's okay, right? That doesn't have to alter my authenticity. It can be collaborative with my authenticity, as long as I'm not using it to hide, right? Like shame and inadequacy. I'm doing it from like, I just really love things when they're just so, you know what I mean? And I think I'm learning that. Like you, Michael, like entrepreneurialism. So my mom was an entrepreneur at certain points in her career. My dad was an entrepreneur. My aunt's an entrepreneur. So I had that kind of ingrained in me, and I love that about myself. Like I can't even imagine working for somebody. Like I will never work for anybody ever again in my life, right? Like the grind is tough, but I love being my own boss. It is just magical. And then my father is also really he developed rosacea when he was, I don't know, I was probably like 18, something like that. And he became really obsessed with health and wellness and supplementation and eating well and all these sorts of things. And that had a really strong influence on me. Both my parents were really into health and fitness and bodybuilding and these sorts of things. So I just think that for me has been such a gift, because I'm very health conscious. And I very rarely have to go to the doctor or any of these things, because I just take really good care of my health. I research my own health. I research everything. I'm very informed about my body and things like that. So, and then the last one I wrote down was hockey. So I grew up playing hockey, but I also grew up going to my dad's hockey games, like a ton of them. And I loved it. And that is the biggest commonality between my father and I, as we talk about hockey, and it brings us together. And hockey is one of my greatest joys. Like whenever I'm watching hockey or playing hockey, I'm like in my element. It's exactly what I love to do. And I definitely wouldn't have got that if it wasn't for my father. So yeah, that felt good.
Yeah.
I feel you made me
love
know.
that was beautiful.
Yeah.
There's some
Yeah.
nice things in there.
Yeah. It felt good to reflect on them and share them. So thank you.
And then yours inspired within me with my dad was soccer. I used to watch with him, and I feel like I'm the only gay person who loves the World Cup, like the FIFA World Cup, as much as he loves RuPaul's Drag Race. So people, I can hold both. I'm like, no, they're both fucking awesome. So that's a really good one. I love that.
Cool.
Basketball.
For you is basketball.
Yeah, my dad would sometimes take us. He was so into basketball. He played university basketball, and he actually almost got drafted, but his knee tore. Yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, like he would sometimes take us to the court, and my dad's like 6'4", so he would just, we'd go to the court and we'd like dribble and throw the ball, and it's something I remember fondly. And to be honest, I think if the guys at school weren't assholes, I probably would have got into basketball, and I'll still dribble from time to time. Like it's fun. I enjoy it as an adult. But yeah, basketball and hip hop. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you guys actually got that like athletic gene. I just diddled the soccer players.
That's a sport too. That's also a sport.
My talent was not on the field. My talent was after.
Exactly. In the locker room.
Yeah. I didn't get the athletic gene so much.
That's good. I love it. Okay, last question. So what matters most to you when it comes to your family, Michael?
Yeah, so this is great because I'm with one eye watching you guys, and with the other eye, literally, I'm looking at them all up there. My mom's playing with the dog, and yeah. So for me, it's traditions such as this. So we come up in the fall to close up the cottage and whatnot. That's what we're doing here. We do this every year. For me, it's traditions. It's the cornerstone of family for me. My sister and brother-in-law have their 3 kids. My brother and sister-in-law have their 3 kids. So we don't come together as much as we used to. But we will always make sure we come together for a Thanksgiving and Christmas, like at minimum. Sometimes we try to do birthdays here and there and Sunday dinners here and there where we can, but it's harder now with everyone having their own lives. So for me, yeah, those are the times that that I have that anchor. It also could be weddings and funerals, but it provides that structure and that meaning during these like significant life events. And I used to, as a kid, more so as a teenager, actually resent it. Like, oh, why'd I have to go to this? Felt like an obligation. I rolled my eyes. But especially lately in the last 5 years, I think I've really come to appreciate it. I see the value in it. There's a recognition that my parents aren't going to be here forever. I see them, I'm watching right now. I see them get older and they're reminding me of like my grandparents when I was a kid. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. They're that now. And I'm the adult and my nieces and nephews are the kids. So, it's very important to me that we do have those traditions and honor them. And on my one side of the family, we are very disconnected. We have no traditions. We don't talk to each other. We don't even say hi, Merry Christmas, nothing like that. And then on the other side, we do. And there's such a big difference there because we prioritize seeing each other. And that those, even though if it's just a few times a year, it's still the fabric of our family values and our culture. And that gets passed down generation to generation. And that consistency is important to me. So I'd say traditions are very important. And then the last thing I'll say is that next generation. So I have 5 nephews and 1 niece. And they are 17, 15, 2 9-year-olds, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. I don't have children of my own, yet I know I'd make a great dad. But I have with these kids a chance to play that role sometimes, especially as they get older. I'll admit, like, but pre-12, I'm like, I don't know what to do with you. But now with like the 2 that are older, 17 and 15, we have a deeper relationship. It's getting fun. I like the kind of conversations we're having. In fact, at Christmas, my niece says to me, she's like, you know that I see your TikTok, right? And immediately I'm like, oh, girl. I'm like, my TikTok is 18 plus and you are 15. And she's like, oh yeah. And she like flips it open. She's like, oh yeah, your video about sexting and bathhouses. I didn't even know what a bathhouse was. And there's things about thirst traps and Grinder and friends with benefits and daddy culture. And I'm like, okay, this is good. Like we can have a conversation about this. You're 15. I can kind of give you the tea on this. So I think I'm excited as my nieces as my niece and nephews get older, getting to play that role as cool gay uncle. That's really important to me, and I think I'm excited for that part of it.
I love that.
How about you, Reno?
Wow, that's good. That's good. It's funny on that note. I remember saying like one of the things that if I ever have children, and even just with my nieces and nephews, the little ones, like as they get older and we're able to have some of those like awkward and uncomfortable conversations that like their parents are probably so scared to have with them because it's too close to home. I'm so excited to have those conversations with my kids, with my nieces and nephews, etc. Like that I'm looking forward to the most because I'm so equipped for that. I'm like, you want to talk about it? Let's do it. There were I would say three fundamental things that came up for me in terms of what matters most to me when it comes to family. One is gathering. Yeah, just magic happens when we gather, always, never fails. And when we gather, there's really this sense that like anything is possible. We're filled up on food, on love on conversation and connection, and experience, you know, so gathering. The second one is team. We're a squad, you know, like, and I love that. It's so important to me, and it feels so amazing to me to know that when my family and I get together and we join forces again in service to like a common goal, magic happens. We're a force to be reckoned with, you know. And I just love knowing that's there, that's there at any time, and knowing what we're capable of when we're together. And then the last one I would say, and there's probably so many more that I'm missing, but meaningful moments. Meaningful moments, I think, are really important to me when it comes to family. Just those moments that are like remarkable, meaningful. Those moments we can look back on and remember fondly, that evoke good feeling and inspiration and love, you know, because at the end of the day, what else is there? You know? Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
I want to see your family in action. I want to be part of this.
Oh
I'd
my
love to be a fly
God,
on the wall during one of your
y'all,
gatherings.
You know what? Okay, so we're gonna plant this seed in the cosmos right now. At some point, Michael and Matt, y'all are gonna be in the same room as me and my family. We're gonna break bread together, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be a blast. Y'all will crack up. It's so funny. Yeah, yeah. And my brothers are hilarious. Like, they will give us all a, like, not like I say, a hard time, but we have a dark sense of humor too. So to be honest, like, we're not PC, me and my brothers, when we're together. Like, the gay jokes, oh my
Oh
gosh,
wow.
the stuff that, oh yeah, we crack gay jokes, we crack race jokes. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's not PC, right? So you won't see or hear any of that recorded, but we have fun because we grew up in adversity, so we had to take what was dark and make it funny and light, you know, and that's where
For
that comes
real.
from. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
but
people
come
get
on
offended.
down. What's that?
Yeah. I said, I think people get offended way too easily
Yeah,
nowadays, to be
yeah,
honest. It's like I get it. We got to be culturally sensitive in these sorts of things,
yeah.
but it's like, you know, I think, yeah, we're all taking ourselves a little too seriously,
Little
especially in
bit.
today's world.
Yeah,
Little
I
bit.
agree.
Yeah. I'd love to see photos. Maybe we can do the same thing we did with the Inner Child podcast or episode or theme, and we can ask everybody to post a picture of their family in the brotherhood. I think that'd be
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
I just posted one, and
We'll
I
make
know,
note.
Matt, you did the same for Thanksgiving. We all posted some photos.
Yeah, it was nice. I love seeing that. I love
Yeah.
seeing it. Okay, so what matters most to me when it comes to my family? You know, I feel like one of the biggest things is like a common thread. Like, we all have shared lived experience. That's an important one, especially in my immediate family. Like that, you know, my mom and my dad and my sister and I, like, we all know what we experienced, and that it was challenging, and it was also beautiful. You know, and we can reflect on that, and it's really cool. I had you know, I think it was I've been back in Calgary now for 2 years, so it must have been 3 years ago. I was going through a really, really dark time, and it lasted for like a year. That was like one of my dark nights of the soul. And I remember I just reached out to my sister and I was like, do you want to hop on a Zoom and just talk? And we just literally hung out for like an hour and a half and just like cried about like things we experienced. And it was very healing, and she gets it. And it's like, you know, I've gone to therapists, talked to friends about my pain, and like, they can practice empathy, but it's different, right? With her, like, she knew exactly what we both experienced. And yeah, it was really nice to have that moment with her. It's kind of almost like a turning point for me, in starting to open up my heart to like be able to like really recognize like some of this pain, and then start healing it. They're there for me when I need them. My mom's my biggest supporter of my work. She literally comments on everything that I create. It's hilarious. And I haven't been creating much lately, actually, so she hasn't been doing it, but you'll always find a comment from my mom saying that she loves my work and I'm her precious baby boy and she loves me to the moon and back and all these things. So yeah, that's and I think part of me, I'm learning how to let that back in, which is, yeah, it's coming. It's definitely coming. And then one thing that stood out is I went to New York for my 21st birthday, and my dad came with me to all the gay bars that I went to. And he danced with guys, and guys were coming up and hitting on him, and he was just super cool with it. And, you know, I've always had that. Like, my friends always growing up were like really, like, I remember friends would come over and they would just hang out with my dad, and I'd be like, what the fuck, man? Like, you're here to hang out with me. But I've always had like a really cool, like, my mom was cool, my dad was cool, and my friends loved them. And so, you know, that was a really cool experience for me because I never had an issue coming out. I feel very grateful for that. Like, I came out when I was 18 to my mom and my sister on Mother's Day. They were like, so, okay, cool, like, moving on. And it was just whatever. And my dad was fine with it too. Like, he didn't really have an issue. I think he might have been internally a little uncomfortable at first. I think all fathers feel like, okay, I created this guy and he's gay, and what does that mean about me? I felt that a little bit from him, but not a lot. And then I think he just stepped up, and he was there for me, and he, you know, we always had like good talks and heart to hearts about things that I was struggling with, and he helped me through my addiction. Actually, that whoa, I totally forgot about that. So my dad, when I went through my crack addiction, I went to rehab when I was 18, and there was phase 1, 2, and 3. And phase 1 was like a 30-day stay for me. And then I got out. And then phase 2 was my family going. And my dad went and stayed at the rehab center for, I can't remember if it was like a week or 3 days or something, but he devoted the time to that because I was living with him at the time. And I don't think I went back for phase 3. I think because I would continued my addiction beyond that. I still had a lot of healing to do, but just, I don't know, he's always been there for me, and it's just been really, really beautiful. So yeah, this is weird. This is very weird. Yeah, some stuff's coming through, which is really nice. Yeah.
Wow.
We managed to keep it under an hour. That's good.
Yeah, we did it.
We did it. We got 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow. For anyone who's still listening, just thank you for like sticking with us on these.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Any closing comments from you guys?
I want to just thank you guys for letting us into your family life. It's not an aspect we get to talk about very much on this podcast, so I think it's really cool to I was imagining Reno in this, you know, family life in UMAT, and it's just really cool to see you or get a glimpse of that side of you. It's cool.
Yeah, I agree.
I want to hang out with your daddy.
Your daddy. Go clubbing with my dad.
Yeah, no, it's so funny, the parallels in our stories too, Matt, because I feel my dad came out to the gay bar with me one time, and I was like, he's like, you think I haven't been in a place like this before? I was like, oh, really? Okay.
Oh,
but yeah, it's so cool. Yeah,
that was,
I would die
amazing.
If my dad was at a gay bar. Like, I would probably drop dead.
So yeah, especially if there was a dark room. Could you imagine?
Oh, girl.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, well, thanks for everybody for tuning in, and like Michael said, sticking with us as we go into those more tender spots and beautiful spots. Yeah, if you have not already, please come and join us in the Gay Men's Brotherhood. Yeah, we got a really thriving community over there, and we're doing some really cool things, and we have things coming down the pipeline. More specifically, the Zoom Hangouts, right? That's really where people can come and share and talk about your family. That's why we have them, right? We get to talk about ours on here, and then we hold space for people to come and share. We'd love to hear about you and your family the last Thursday of every month. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, please leave us some comments. How this episode landed for you, what family means to you. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please leave us a rating. And if you enjoyed what you heard, leave us a 5-star rating, because it helps us get into the ears of the people that need to hear our message. So much love to everybody. Much love to you too. And we'll see you in the next episode.